Small talk, conversations with strangers, interviews. I don't know many INFJs who are comfortable in these situations or for whom this type of interaction comes naturally. So, how do you deal with it as an INFJ? Stick around for today's show to find out. First off, why are small talk, conversations with strangers, and interviews such a challenge for us as INFJs? I have 3 R's for you. And the first has to do with the way our brains are wired. I'm going to term it recall. What I mean by recall is that as an introvert, you and I are wired to remember things in a long-term way. If you actually took a look at the neural pathways in your brain, you'd see that you were good at recalling all kinds of information. You might have seen this in multiple ways. Maybe it's just remembering a conversation that you had a long time ago, or it might be facts about particular topics that interest you, especially when they're connected to theories. People tell me from time to time that I'm good at remembering random details about particular topics that I've enjoyed studying. And I know a lot about a diverse amount of things, at least compared to the average person. And I bet the same is true of you, depending on what your interests are. We tend to remember a lot about a lot, and that's a gift, but it comes with a cost. We're not good at pulling information out of our mind quickly, contrasted with extroverts who are really good off the cuff, especially with their short-term memory, because they're wired differently. They're wired to keep a lot in their mind and be able to share it rapid fire with anyone with whom they come in contact with. So actually, again, the neural pathways in our brain are wired differently. And the second R I have to share with you is rewards. And what I mean by rewards is that our brains also reward us differently. So if you look at neurotransmitters like dopamine that reward you for certain actions, we are wired to work in a quiet way where we can think about those details that we've committed to memory and work with ideas. Often writing is a great way to get the ideas out because it gives us plenty of time to process and work through what we're thinking about. Whereas with extroverts, they get a dopamine rush or they're mentally rewarded when they're out engaging in a variety of activities, especially the ones that tend to be fast-paced. Of course, this is a generalization. It depends on the type of extrovert, but they also usually enjoy meeting new people and having lots of conversations about a variety of seemingly superficial topics. And I'm not saying that they're shallow. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they can talk about a lot that covers a span of things rather quickly. And again, it depends on the extrovert, but their brains reward them for that kind of thing. And they spend a lot of time doing it because they're rewarded for it, just like we spend a lot of time maybe reading and researching or learning or having deep conversations because that's what we're rewarded for. So over time, based on the way our brains reward us, we get better and better at what we enjoy more and more, and a lot has to do with how we're wired as well. And the third R that I'll share with you is a resource, and the resource I'd recommend is Marty Olson-Laney's book, The Introvert Advantage. There's a good bit of information about brain wiring with introverts and extroverts in that tome, so I'll recommend that to you. Now that you know a little bit more about why we act the way we do as INFJs, here's some suggestions for dealing with these kinds of social interactions and social situations, particularly around this time of the year, Christmas time or New Year's, or honestly, it can be any time of the year whenever you have to interact with strangers or you have to talk a lot off the cuff, whether it's at an interview or whatever situation you're in, like a meeting or whatever. Here's some things that I'd recommend you keep in mind. And the first thing that I'd encourage you to keep in mind is that you're not broken or messed up. I say this a lot, but I'm going to apply it specifically to the kind of conversations we're talking about today because it's easy to look at other people, especially if you work with a lot of extroverts, and feel like there's something wrong with you. I felt that way for so long because in education where I work, a lot of my coworkers are extroverts, and not just extroverts, they are like superb relators. They're very good at interacting and doing so quickly. So I felt stupid and slow and messed up, particularly in meetings where they were able to share ideas quickly, rapid fire. And by the time the meeting was over, I felt like my best ideas were just starting, but I couldn't even share them because it was too late. When I realized that it wasn't necessarily something wrong with me, but that we were just different, that helped quite a bit. So keep in mind that just because this isn't a strength for you necessarily doesn't mean you're not very good at other things. So don't focus so much on the weakness that you miss the many strengths that you bring to the table. Number 2, if you're like most INFJs, your mind is going to go into hyperdrive during the conversation and definitely after the conversation as well. You're going to be overanalyzing, especially if you're not comfortable with what's happening or you're not super comfortable with the person. You're going to be thinking about what they're thinking. You're going to be thinking about what you are saying and what you're thinking. You're going to be thinking about the things you've said and how silly they might have sounded, or how you wish you could rephrase it, or you're wondering how the other person is going to be feeling based on what you said. And this is going to just spin out of control. And then again, when you're done with the conversation, you're going to be tempted to hyper analyze it, overanalyze it on infinitum, and it's going to just drive you nuts. So resist that temptation. If you do this, a little bit of thinking, a little bit of reflecting is good, but this tends to just create a negative cycle of despair. And I would encourage you to just expect it to come and to acknowledge it and then try to move on and think other thoughts. And it can be helpful to write it down in a journal. It can be helpful to process with somebody whom you trust, like I mentioned before. Often I'll write it in a journal. I was looking back at some notes I took like 5 or 6 years ago, and even just like reading what I'd written down was a bit discouraging because I realized how awkward it was still. So it's just always going to be the case. Don't let it defeat you, and don't spend too much time thinking about it. Related to that, and the third suggestion I have for you is to give yourself room to improve. While you are intentionally trying to move past that temptation to overanalyze, also allow yourself to make some mistakes. If you blow it or feel like you blew it, which you probably didn't actually blow it, because we tend to be more self-critical than other types who may not even be thinking about or aware of some of the things that we think about, I would encourage you to put yourself out there and try to fail forward. It's okay to go out and have a conversation and feel like you blew it. That is actually the way to getting better. And if you're out there making mistakes, you're getting feedback and you're starting to learn, okay, that didn't work. What did work? And then you can kind of hone it. Now, ultimately, you just want to be yourself, but it's okay to get out there and make mistakes. So don't beat yourself up, because if you are too critical of yourself, then you'll end up not wanting to spend time with people at all. And while you don't need to be around people maybe as much as extroverts do, you do need people, especially good relationships with people you can trust. And also, your own health is a byproduct of how you're able to help other people. So you need to spend time with people, and this is an important skill to at least develop to some extent. So don't beat yourself up too much. The fourth and final suggestion I have for you is to keep working at it, because you can improve. You can get better. It's never going to be something that's your absolute favorite thing, just hobnobbing, socializing, getting to know new people. Although you can get pretty good at this and probably enjoy it. Actually, at my church, I'm a greeter, and I do enjoy relating to people, even though I can almost never remember most of their names. You might actually enjoy relating to others. So my advice to you is to keep working at it. You can create an intentional program, especially thinking about the new year and maybe some personal goals you want to set for yourself, by intentionally meeting 3 new strangers each week and just striking up conversations. The beautiful thing about talking with strangers is you may never see them again. And you can, again, maybe encourage them, and you can learn about how to have a positive conversation. I had a great conversation along with my co-host, Jen Graneman, who runs introvertdeer.com, with Andre, who was a guest on the show at the time, and he was just talking about his own journey of developing interpersonal skills. Now, he wasn't an INFJ, he's an INTJ, but he gives some great advice about how he intentionally met with and talked to different people on a regular basis until he grew comfortable relating to others. And he suggests some awesome skills, many of which I really benefited from and could relate to in my own journey of relating to other people. So that show will be linked up in the show notes. It's about how to win friends as an introvert, I think it's called, but look for that in the show notes. I'd really encourage you to look at that. But even just setting a simple goal like talking to 3 people each week can be super helpful. Another resource I'd recommend for you is Rejection Proof by Jia Zhang. I really enjoyed that book too. He was just talking about how he was reading into other people and assuming that they would reject him even before he really asked them something he wanted to ask them. And he ended up, once he defeated this fear, having some great conversations and great opportunities that he never would have had otherwise had he not put himself out there. So 2 really inspiring conversations or resources that I'd recommend to you are the ones I just mentioned. Finally, I just want to encourage you. I honestly still struggle with this and overanalyze and have to talk about things with my wife on a regular basis or journal them, or for me, I pray about them. And it's okay. It's just part of who we are. So if it's something that you wrestle with, don't beat yourself up again. In fact, I often think about a wise INFJ who I've heard in recent times. He pointed out that he realizes about himself that this isn't a strength, so he intentionally leans into his strengths. He does a lot of reading and writing and a lot of working with other people this way in intensive communications or conversations that help the other people grow. So lean into those strengths. But that said, he does have to relate to other people, and he just does the best he can, and he's okay with that. So I think that's wonderful advice for me, for you, going into this new year. Just lean into your strengths, but again, be intentional about developing these skills and know that you can get better, even though relating to others may never be, at least in this way, your favorite thing. If you'd like to learn more about your INFJ personality, I'd love to give you a free copy of my book, The INFJ Personality Guide. In the book, you'll learn about the mindsets and motivations that cause you to do what you do, as well as some common INFJ challenges and solutions to those challenges. And ultimately, what I want you to come away with is an understanding that, again, you're not messed up or broken, but just different, and you bring some great gifts to the table. So you can get that book one of 2 ways. Again, it's absolutely free. The first way is to text the letters INFJ to the number 444999. And the second way is to visit ispeakpeople.com/INFJ-personality-guide. And you can find that link in the description below this video. Thanks again for watching this video. I hope that it really served you. If this is your first time watching, thanks for checking this channel out. I'd encourage you to subscribe. There are new videos on a regular basis helping you better understand yourself, why you do what you do, how to relate to others, and other related topics. So would love for you to come back and join this community. And if you're already a member of the community, thanks so much. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show.